Now let's continue to find out what unique aspects that we can do with our prompts using Prompt Book. So we have all the different artists, and I would really recommend going through and using this really as your glossary that you always can pull from for specific looks and feels. So all these sci-fi artists we can pull from and use the styles, the photographers, for concept art. And that actually reminds me, this just kind of opened my mind when I saw that you could do something like this. And I think this is going to be our last scuba diver reference. So let's do scuba diver as a schematic drawing. We're not going to add the car to this one. And what this is going to do is it's going to now take what we were working with before, retain our subject, which is the scuba diver, and turn it into more of the blueprint style of what actually makes up a scuba diver. So I really like this top right image, and that's just a totally different look and feel. So we could have typed in scuba diver on a piece of paper being drawn, highly detailed, but we can use keywords that's also going to describe the kind of output we're going for as well. So in my mind, I saw more of this style. So this is a really cool, unique style that you could even do a schematic of something that you've never seen before, like a UFO schematic or a schematic of a Transformers or a Gundam fighter, which let's just actually see what that output would be. So I'm going to do blueprint schematic of a high-tech UFO design. We'll let that start creating, and we'll also do a schematic of a Transformers robot. And here we have our UFO, and it's crazy that it creates 4 different versions so quickly. Just to even rough outline this by hand would have taken literally hours for me to do. So you can start to see the potential of using this for personal projects and for professional projects where you're not just bound by typing in stuff like an astronaut riding a horse. You can literally tell it so specifically to create this outline of what a Transformers robot would be made up of and make it look like a detailed breakdown of that thing that doesn't even exist in physical reality is so crazy. And if someone told me that you could do this over a year ago, I would not have believed it at all. So let's keep seeing what else we can do, which are things like illustrations and creating 3D objects. So what I'm going to do now is create a total opposite low poly, which we can see what that example looks like here. 3D of a high-tech UFO. And let's see if there's any other prompts in here that we can add to that. Let's type in 3D Blender render, because like I mentioned before, it will also mimic the styles that come from specific softwares. So not only can you mimic the style of specific cameras, specific lenses, but it also knows, and specific styles from movies, it also knows the way certain render engines that create videos look like. So it's going to mimic that, and we're going to take our very highly detailed schematic of our subject, which in this case is the UFO, and we're going to output a much more minimal computer-generated item that's going to look more like it's coming from a Pixar movie. And just like that, we have our 3D version. So here's what we have for our newest prompt. The lighting is completely different, the coloring is completely different, the look and feel is completely different versus our flat, highly detailed schematic. So continuing on to more options, if we're creating a children's book, we can create a UFO in the style of a children's book if that was what we were looking for. If we wanted much more simplistic vectors, we can also do that as well. Scientific illustrations, which are similar to the schematics that we were creating. But look at this, it's literally a scientific illustration of Pikachu. That's something that would have taken many, many hours for an artist to create. We can do caricatures, movie posters, psychedelic art. Character design is another great one for getting off the ground quickly with ideas right out of the gate for fantasy type creatures and characters in video games that don't exist yet that would take a lot of time to brainstorm. And that leads to emotions. Like I mentioned before, it does a really good job of picking up on subtle cues that humans would use to explain a certain feeling. For example, coziness, it's gonna create an ambient, warm type of lighting. Romantic, it's gonna also do the same thing for the romantic feeling. Warmer colors, softer look and feel. And the same goes for all of the other explanation words that you can use to convey a certain type of emotion. It's gonna convey that in the coloring and the lighting quality. The same goes for negative emotions. If this is the look you're going for, you can use these words. And for even more customization on the look, there are key words that have kind of developed over the course of the internet of specific genres of art styles. This goes the same for music, how there's many different genres of music. There's, let's say, house music, but then there's many genres of house within that genre of music, like French house, soft house, hard house, electro house. There's also keywords that explain specific styles: vaporwave, dreamcore, acid wave. So you can see some are more trippy, some are more 90s and retro. So going through here and pulling some of the keywords that align with your unique style is a great jumping off point for your future prompts. And let's continue to go down this rabbit hole of prompting. So we can also tell Midjourney the quality that we're looking for, because you have to imagine that it's pulling reference photos online and it has certain words that are attached to the images that it's pulled. So images like a landscape, it then looks at, let's say 100,000 images of a landscape versus images of a landscape with the words HDR or 4K are gonna look a lot different aesthetically, because people uploading those images online with words 4K attached to it are getting a much more modern, high pixel resolution and overall sharper image than images from the past, which could be photos or paintings even of past landscapes. So if we go through and we try this, so we're just gonna keep this super simple and we're gonna say red car driving down the street. Okay, and I'm gonna copy this and it's gonna output a red car, but then we're gonna do the same thing, comma 4K, which is gonna tell it the resolution style that I want it to mimic. It's not gonna make the image a 4K image, but it's gonna take all of the 4K related images that have been attached to that term and apply that look and feel to my image. And we're also gonna put in HDR. HDR is it's a bit beyond the scope of this course, but it's a multi-exposure photo that's taking an image at a low exposure, a regular exposure, and a high exposure, and combining those in post-production to get a really cool aesthetic. This is gonna take out any of the more cartoon animated style that the majority of these first images have. So if we look at the references, we have this style and these look really nice. They look more detailed, they look more realistic, and these have a great artistic quality to them that we changed by adding reference keywords that kept the same subject, which is our red car, but completely updated the aesthetic. And so simply put, you can just see the outputs are completely different. Even though we're keeping our subject, which is the red car, we're changing the final look and feel with the output. So keywords are absolutely imperative to use. Highly detailed is another type of quality word similar to 4K or photorealistic or hyperrealistic that we can use to tell Midjourney to be less creative and to be more specific on what reality looks like versus what a cartoon or an animation would look like. So if you're going for that hyper realism, these quality words are really important to use. That leads to other keywords like using the word professional. I can use the word best-selling photograph. I can use the word award-winning photography, and it's gonna drastically change our final image. So let's see an example of this. And at the beginning, I wanna keep all of these prompts simple. So we're gonna say beautiful landscape with mountains and trees. Okay, I'm gonna copy this prompt. We're gonna type that in, and we're gonna add a keyword, or keywords technically, award-winning photography. And what Midjourney is gonna do is it's gonna take all of its photos that relate to a beautiful landscape with mountains and trees, but it's gonna modify the final output with all the photos that it has in its memory banks of award-winning photography, which is going to bring up the professional level of it, the realisticness of it, and other more subtle things like the framing, composition, editing. All of those things will be improved to mimic the way an award-winning photographer's final output would look like. So let's look at this. We have our beautiful landscape with trees and mountains. And it looks awesome, super creative looking, and each image is honestly really unique. Now, if we go to the award-winning photography, boom, you can instantly see that now the image is reminding you of photos that you've seen for, let's say, National Geographic, Discovery Channel, or any other kind of online places where you see great nature photography. So it does an excellent job of mimicking so many different styles. And that wraps it up for going through the prompt book that I wanted to share with you as a great learning resource to use as a glossary and really a place where you have a lot of great prompts to pull from to create unique looking art. In the next lesson, we're gonna dive even deeper into using prompts.